Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing why exes return when you move forward. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing why exes return when you move forward. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you need to increase your chance of success. I believe this involves the dumpee moving forward with their life. In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 reasons why exes return when you move forward. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is moving forward is not moving on. So sometimes you will hear people saying these 2 phrases and almost not distinguishing the difference. Whether or not that matters to your point of view is up to your thoughts. But in my opinion, moving forward is not moving on. In my opinion, they are 2 very different things. And therefore, when we discuss today's podcast, why exes return when you move forward, I'm not speaking about when you quote-unquote move on, because I believe there is a very subtle but important difference. And that is, when you move on, in my opinion, this means you are closing the door behind you, you're locking the door, and you're throwing away the key. So in some respects, that might be something along the lines of you decide to delete your ex's contact from your phone, but before you do so, you actually block them. Or you might go above and beyond what you needed to do theoretically, with you being the dumpee and your ex-dumper not at this time contacting you, but you decide to go the extra mile to make sure it's impossible for them to do so. Maybe, for instance, you've moved house and you don't let anybody know who knows your ex where you're going, so even if they wanted to speak with a friend of a friend, a mutual acquaintance or whatnot, they've got no way of knowing where you've actually moved to, because you've kind of cut all potential lines of communication off. So as you can see, in my opinion, when you move on, you're really closing that door and you're locking it tight and then throwing away the key. In my opinion, moving forward is, although you would like to try and get your ex back, you're going to leave that door open, which means you're not going to block your ex, which means if you do move away, you will mention this to acquaintances who you know are friends of a friend with your ex, mutual acquaintances or whatever, so that they have an opportunity to find out information about you and your life if they ask about you. You see, that is the difference. If you move forward, you're concentrating on you and your journey, but the door is open. This doesn't mean that you're chasing your ex. You're still focusing on you. You're still focusing on your journey, your goals, your aspirations. You're going to be moving forward in a way where you potentially date new people, but you're not going to block your ex. But you're not going to remove any possibility of them somehow finding information out about you. And that is the difference. Some people might use these terms in an interchangeable way. That is up to you and other people if they want to do that. But I think there is a big difference. And that is why I try to not say moving on unless I really mean it in the way I've just described. Now, yes, I've got some podcasts in the past where I've used the terminology moving on because it is a much more common phrase. But I try to correct people within my podcasts when I've done this to really let them know what I actually mean, because I don't want any confusion. And I do believe if you want to get your ex back, then moving on is not actually going to help you in that regard. Because if you block your ex, for instance, okay, it might be very important you do so for your own mental health, but that's not going to allow you to receive contact from your ex and grow a new connection. There is a balance to be had. Your mental health should be front and centre. The most important thing that you focus upon, it should be your guiding light about what you need to do. And if you need to block your ex, then you need to block your ex. But you can't then expect to try and reconnect with your ex, certainly in an easy way, if you start to remove avenues for your ex to reach out to you. Because in most instances, I do believe But if you've been dumped, you should never contact your ex again unless they contact you first. How can they contact you if you remove those possibilities of ways and avenues of how they can do so? So that's the difference, moving forward is not moving on. And today's podcast is about why I believe exes return when you move forward, but not when you move on. If you move on, they're going to find it very hard to contact you, even if they come to a conclusion that they want to reconnect. Even if they grow romantic emotional attraction for you in the months or years beyond your breakup, if you've properly moved on, they're not going to find a way to be able to reach out and start to try and regrow that new connection. And if you have decided that you've met somebody new, for instance, and you are absolutely no longer bothered about connecting with your ex, then yes, move on. It's not just about mental health. If you do find somebody better and you don't want to hear from your ex again and you want to remove any possibility of that happening, then yeah, that's what you should be doing. But if you want your ex back, you can't be locking the door and throwing away the key. When you think about it logically, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's why I believe you should be moving forward rather than moving on if you one day want to try and get your ex back. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast. Please like this video if you're watching on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. And point number 2 is exes return when they feel they are missing out. So if you want to try to get your ex back, you need to put yourself in a position where they feel they are missing out by not being with you. They need to feel that they are missing out by not contacting you. And therefore, when we look at this in that regard, we can see that your ex needs to think about you, they need to wonder about you, they need to get to the stage where they miss you. Now, if you don't move forward with your life, then, unless you're going to go the whole hog and move on, as we've already discussed, but in other words, if you don't move forward, the likelihood is you're going to be really focusing on your ex still, and therefore you're going to be chasing them. The opposite of moving forward could be argued is actually you chasing your ex, you reaching out to them, you begging, pleading, reasoning, trying to get into their mindset and describe as per why you both should be together and why you should never have split up. If you chase your ex, if you don't accept the breakup, if you try and persuade, beg, plead, reason with your ex, then they're not going to be wondering about you. They're going to know that you're there. They're going to realise that you really love them with all of your heart and you're always going to be there. You are their safety net. They can live their life. They can do their thing. They know that you're there. They're not going to wonder about you because you're likely telling them everything there is to know by sending direct messages, by calling them, knocking on their door, waiting outside where they work, deliberately bumping into them and saying, hey, how are you? Guess what I've been doing? And you're telling them all of the things that we want them to wonder about. Now, this doesn't mean that they can't find out information via a third party, because that's fine. That is still going to create wonder. That's going to create intrigue. That's going to create a situation where they want to speak with you. Okay, but what we're talking about here is don't directly contact your ex. If you directly contact your ex, they're not going to think about you, wonder and miss you in anywhere near the same way than if you implement my version of a no contact rule. Now, if you're not familiar with no contact rule is something that lots of people suggest you implement if you've been dumped and want to try to get your ex back. However, there are many different versions of a no contact rule that you can find online, and I believe that my version will give you that best possible chance of success. So I suggest that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, ring the bell for notifications, and check out the playlist I've got on there entitled The No Contact Rule. There you can fully immerse yourself in my version of a rule and understand why I believe it will give you that best possible chance of success. That will create wonder. It will create mystery. It will create intrigue. And if your ex feels these things, then they are going to start feeling like they're missing out. And they won't feel like they're missing out unless you're moving forward. If you go the whole way and you move on, they might be wondering still and feeling they're missing out, but they've got no way of contacting you. And that's why, as I said in point number 1, there is that subtle difference between moving forward and moving on. But if you move forward, what that means is you're not chasing your ex, you're not contacting them, you're not deliberately bumping into them so you can show off and tell them all the things you've been doing, which, look, we want your ex to be really impressed by your changes and your achievements, but not with you chasing, say, hey, I've changed, ex, look what I've done, look how I've improved, look at this, look at me. No. They need to find out via a third party. They need to find out via social media. They need to find out just by their own mind, their own brain, inventing what they think is happening with you. That is how they will wonder about you. That is how they will feel they are missing out. They can't miss you if you're always in their life. They can't wonder about you if they know everything because you keep telling them. Not all exes are going to block you if you reach out to them. Not all exes are going to tell you to go away if you reach out to them. Some of them might be happy to friend zone you. Some of them might be happy for you to be within their life in the position that they want you to be, which right now is sadly probably in the friend zone. So it's not like you're going to have a clear sign that they don't want you in and around their orbit. But if you are not romantically involved with your ex and you're still hanging around with them, spending time, texting, calling, talking, is that really what you want? Is that making you happy? Is it making you feel good having your ex as a pen friend? I don't think so. So don't provide them with a safety net option. Implement my version of a no contact rule. Most of the time, I would suggest that is the best possible chance that you have of reconnecting with your ex. And if you're wondering if you have any specific unique circumstances which would involve a slightly different approach, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about why exes return when you move forward. And point number 3 is being a better romantic option. Now, moving forward is not just about spending time away from your ex. It's not just about trying to improve your health and fitness. It's not just about trying to improve your skill set and your mindset. It's actually about becoming a better romantic option. And that means practicing those very important perishable skills. Skills which you will lose if you don't practice. And sadly, your skill set in this regard might not actually be that great anyway, since you were dumped. And what we're talking about here is dating skills. Now, within dating skills, we have some important skills, including communication skills, flirting skills, just how to relate to one another in a romantic setting. These are the things which maybe you didn't really have down correctly when you were with your ex. Maybe that's why you were dumped, maybe it wasn't, but certainly they need to be refined, improved, and making sure that you are a better romantic option than your ex remembered, and a better romantic option than they have right now. Now, you can do this by making sure you're getting yourself out there, making new connections, living your life to the full, and not being afraid to go on dates if the opportunity arises. I've spoke to many dumpers who've told me in general, most of the time, most dumpers would actually feel intrigue and a level of jealousy if they found out their dumpee was dating. So, although I can't guarantee how your ex would react if they were to find out that you were dating someone, I would say the likelihood is, if anything, they're going to think more of you in comparison to if they believe you're sitting at home alone with your head in your hands. Because, of course, if you're dating somebody new, that shows you are a dateable option. If you're dating somebody new and your ex finds out who this person is, they might look at this person online or might even know them and think, wow, they're attractive. They might even be more attractive than me. If they're dating my ex, then maybe I've got my ex wrong. If they want my ex, why don't I want my ex? This is where social proofing comes into play, and you can really increase your chance of re-attracting your ex by moving forward in a way where you're dating new people. But as I said, it's the perishable skills we really want to be working on. Your ex may or may not find out you're dating new people. You may or may not want them to ever find out. But the important thing is you're improving your skill set in this regard. Practicing the communication skills is a fundamental basic to enable you to have a successful long-term relationship. Flirting skills are very, very important, of course, as well, when you want to have romance with somebody. So what can you do? Well, like I suggested, make new connections, go on dates. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be living with this person and marrying this person. It just means you're enjoying the moment with this person. 2 consenting adults, enjoying some dates. What's wrong with that? And you will come out the other side more improved, more skilled, more knowledgeable, because by mixing and dating with new people, you will learn new skills off them. Maybe you was with your ex for many, many years. Maybe you haven't dated for decades. This would suggest that you're out of the game. You know, you really need to learn how people relate to one another. You really need to learn some new tricks of the trade. You know, you need to be somebody that if your ex does reach out to and you communicate well and when you decide to meet up, you need to at that stage show that you are a better romantic option than they remembered and a better romantic option than they found since your breakup. You can only do this if you improve, and you can only do this if you move forward. Moving forward enables you to make new connections, because if you're not moving forward, you're sitting at home alone, thinking about your ex, deciding when should be the next time you reach out to them with a hit and hope approach, thinking it might do you some good, when the likelihood is it's not. The likelihood is you're going to be one step closer to being blocked, and then beyond that, if you find a way to reach out to them, you're one step closer to having a restraining order put on you. You know, most of the time, if you've been dumped, you should never contact your ex again unless they contact you first, and therefore you need to move forward, because the alternative is sitting at home alone, and that is not going to help you. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.